to write one of the best books about the Gita.
A walkthrough for
A
Westerners.
walkthrough.
And when I showed Bob the final, showed Swami the final, he looked at it and he wrinkled his brow. He said, "For Westerners?"
Meaning, why not for everybody?
That's right. And since then, I've got a lot of feedback from India saying the same thing. They say, "Oh yes, my father has never touched the Gita, and now he's read it and he loves it." And it's because it's for Westerners.
Actually, Jack's book is famous around the world. Note this, one of many similar reviews. This translation of the epic mystical poem uses everyday prose to walk the reader through difficult concepts. Jack Hawley's Gita is not an abstract classic, but a universal love song that covers a wide range of topics, from healing inner pain to celebrating life.
This is the Bhagavad Gita, a walkthrough for Westerners by Jack Hawley. The Bhagavad Gita has been called India's greatest contribution to the world. For more than 5,000 years, this great scripture has shown millions in the East how to fulfill their lives with serenity and love. Now these ancient secrets have been brought to us in the West in a beautiful prose version that makes the story of the Gita clear and exciting and makes its truths understandable and easily applied to our busy lives. The Gita is a universal love song sung by God to his friend man. It can't be confined by any creed. It is a statement of the truths at the core of what we all already believe, only it makes those truths clearer, so they become immediately useful in our lives. These truths are for our hearts, not just our heads. Introduction. Why the Bhagavad Gita? The Gita is an epic, mystical poem about life, death, love, and duty from the peoples who settled in the river valleys in southern Asia and developed a sophisticated culture thousands, probably scores of thousands of years ago. It is a half-inch thick poem embedded in the middle of a 6-inch thick poem, the Mahabharata, a literary masterpiece about the heights and depths of the human soul. The Bhagavad Gita contains the inner essence of India, the moral and spiritual principles found in the very earliest scriptures of this ancient land. One of them, the Rig Veda, is said to be the oldest record of mankind. To read the Bhagavad Gita, therefore, is to reach countless epics back in time. And yet, as I settled into these cobwebby teachings, they felt strangely close and familiar. It was as if some force could at long last take my hand and walk me down a not-so-quiet path to important and meaningful truths, as if I, this too-worldly Western businessman, living behind the faded, whitewashed walls of an ashram in southern India, could now finally be let in on the most profound secrets of mankind. This ancient tome is not, as one might expect, about withdrawing from life to meditate in some far-off cave. It's more of a manual to clutch close, a friendly guide for living a more spiritual life today, a more purposeful and fulfilling life, even while staying fully active in the world. The Gita is very much about how to remove sorrow and pain from life, and thus achieve contentment and serenity, which is a wondrous goal. But even more than that, it's about the absolute highest prize, liberation and self-realization in this lifetime. It's not merely about the quest for these lofty things. It's a detailed map to the treasure itself. It's a handbook for living a higher, more satisfying existence here, now, in today's tough and troubling times. And the Gita is also about how to die and what happens after. As I studied the Gita, I found myself so engrossed in this old yet current scripture that I carefully worked through each of the 700 verses called shlokas in Sanskrit, one by one. I called it a walkthrough, and it was not an easy stroll. The Gita's message is full of profound, sometimes intricate spiritual concepts. Many of the painstaking translations written by scholars for other scholars can be almost painfully thorough. And Sanskrit, the early language of the Gita, contains exact terms for spiritual and philosophical concepts that, when put into English, can sound too condensed, like one of those old pay-by-the-word telegrams. Arrive noon, Tuesday, meet me. Important details are missing, and you often don't know what is really being said. I wanted to understand the book in a way that spoke as directly as possible to my struggles and daily concerns. So I developed a pattern of juggling 5 or 6 translations of the Gita on my desk and lap, scratching notations in the margins, checking one against the other, and writing out my own synthesis of each sloka in modern American English. This allowed me to get into the flow of ideas and not interrupt my reading every few words to clarify the meaning of some hard-to-grasp idea. I ended up working my way through 30-some versions, many over 1,000 pages, several consisting of 2 or 3 volumes. One was 17 volumes. It wasn't, though, as onerous or bookish as it sounds, because over the years I had already developed a relationship with the Gita. Although my cultural background, I'm a practical organization consultant from California via upstate New York, though that background is far distant from India, for me the Gita's teachings were tangible and immediate. For 12 years, my wife Louise and I had lived about 6 months each year in a spiritual community in rural India, where the culture of the Gita is still a strong part of daily life. I was therefore able to test these teachings on the touchstone of life's trials as I lived them. As each day closed, I would read my notes to Louise, who had grown to love this great work, to see if the day's writings made any sense to another ordinary interested Westerner. We looked forward to these nightly sessions, and as we grew to better understand the Gita, we developed an even greater admiration and trust of it. Dusting off the Gita's gems of wisdom and adding them to the necklace of our daily living changed us and beautified our lives, and perhaps our immersion in the Gita even saved Louisa's life, which I explain in the afterward. There is a humility that comes with rediscovering these old pearls that have touched countless millions of souls through many, many thousands of years. And there is an awe at seeing how germane they are to the problems of today's world. The walkthrough metaphor in the book's title contained more than I had envisioned. At first it just felt like a friendly term, implying an ease of reading. But as the work progressed, my task became more evident to me. This needed to be a truly different style of Gita. The traditional way of imparting these ancient truths is to present a short aphorism-like teaching, a telegram phase, and then explain it through several pages of in-depth commentary. That process is too lumbering for today. This needed to be a livelier Gita, more attuned, a Gita that could be read from cover to cover without backtracking to recall certain words, or without sidetracking into companion volumes to find out what it really means. This Gita had to stand on its own 2 feet, without crutches of any kind. The whole point is to take your time, walk through it from beginning to end, and enjoy the stroll. Thus I found myself even more intensely juggling the many resource books, making sure that in the end I could stroll easily and Louise could listen smoothly with understanding. I had to repeat the meanings of unfamiliar words and restate several times the explanations of certain ideas that are used quite differently in the Gita than we Westerners use them. The definition of reality, for example. I chose to repeat these clarifications as asides or in parentheses, so that reading would continue to flow. Clarity and flow became my mantra as the work developed, but I also had to assure that it did not turn into just another interesting self-help book. that it retained its very special energy and remained a full-strength, undiluted Gita. I tested the manuscript with several people who are knowledgeable of Sanskrit and the Gita, including professor friends who are not at all shy about giving criticism. Some wrinkled their brows, just for Westerners, but after getting into it, they all liked it and offered many suggestions. A few even confessed that they had personally learned much from it. Not one of them found the frequent reminders too repetitious. Indeed, Krishna, who is the God figure in the Gita, restates the same truths again and again in different contexts and imageries, like a mother repeating lessons to her child. That's how it unfolded. In this quite natural way, this new version of the Bhagavad Gita shuffled happily into being, a concise but powerful book that invites ancient but strangely close and familiar ideas into our lives and gives us new understanding of ancient truths. Forward. Timeless, pure truth. To read the Bhagavad Gita is to swing back and forth smoothly between the head and the heart, between the worldly and the spiritual, arching between gaining knowledge and applying it in today's real world. In this swing from humanness to godliness lies the Gita's secret penetrating power, its ability to lift and move us. Swing now to the Gita story itself. The year is 3141 BCE. Arjuna, an esteemed warrior prince at the height of his powers, the greatest man of action of his time, is readying to go into battle. It is a righteous fight to regain a kingdom rightfully his. All his life he has been a courageous, successful achiever, renowned for prowess in combat. But now, on the eve of the biggest clash of his career, an odd thing happens. His hands begin to shake. Arjuna is in his magnificent war chariot pulled by 4 white steeds. The chariot driver, Arjuna's best friend from boyhood, is Krishna, an avatar, which is an incarnation of divinity on earth. Arjuna, who doesn't really understand Krishna's divinity, has directed him to drive the chariot into the center of the plain where the great battle is soon to begin. The opposing armies have gathered on each side. It is an epic scene. 2 lone figures parked between the legions of good and evil, masses of soldiers, tents, cook fires, neighing horses, banners snapping in the early afternoon breeze, the bustle, noises and smells of pre-battle filling the air. Arjuna's eyes scan the opposing forces, pausing on former friends, revered uncles, teachers who taught him his warrior skills. All are bravely making ready for the mutual slaughter. He slumps, breathes heavily, and looks quizzically at his beloved friend Krishna. Well, reading the Gita, we come to better understand life as an inner battle, a struggle for the mind, heart, body, and spirit. And make no mistake, it is a fight to the death. We learn that our real enemies are not outside, but within, our own desire, anger, and greed. This is what makes it so hard. These arch enemies have linked forces so powerfully that they are all but unbeatable. We're losing. The Gita boldly declares that spirituality is the only winning solution. Turn inward, it directs us, and upward. Look no further than the true self within. Now, swing back to the battlefield, the story. Seated in this chariot in the middle of the battlefield, the slumping Prince Arjuna, his voice barely audible, asks, "Why am I doing this, Krishna? Life is so cruel, so demanding. I don't know if I have the heart for battle anymore." His eyes fill with tears, his knees soften, and he sinks deeper into the vehicle seat. "Beloved friend," he says, "please tell me, what is it all about?" Like water that filters slowly down through earth and comes out fresh and pure, important ideas passing down through the sands of time are eventually rubbed clean and emerge as pure truth. Although stated in different ways at different times by different peoples of the world, these truths have been known to humanity for centuries, for millennia. Though all races and eras may have their own conception of God, for example, they all do have God and truth and goodness. All higher religions and philosophical systems are in nearly complete agreement with these basics. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the earliest, clearest, and most comprehensive statement of these perennial truths. In the Gita, the divine himself comes to his friend, man, in the middle of a vicious war and carefully expounds the laws and principles that govern human life. So again, back on the battlefield, we see Arjuna, this impressive warrior, now bent, burdened, his eyes glistening, pleading for the meaning of life. Krishna, totally calm, responds in effect, "Oh, you really want to know the meaning of life?" With that, he takes the next 20 minutes to deliver the answer, straight from the source. The Gita's 18 chapters can be divided into 3 clusters. The first 6 chapters focus mainly on knowing the true self, and concurrently on the need to perform one's worldly duties effectively for society's welfare. The next 6 chapters concentrate on the very nature of the Godhead and the great love for him that springs from intimately knowing him. The final 6 chapters provide particular knowledge and wisdom for achieving the very purpose of existence, which is to liberate ourselves from the inevitable pain and sorrow that life deals us, and ultimately to merge into the Godhead, divinity itself. All these are ideas of extraordinary power and size, with numerous subtleties and shades of thought. Krishna presents each of these huge ideas gradually, piece by piece, chapter after chapter, until the whole picture becomes clear. Imagine, here we are on the battlefield with a man we can really identify with, who is in dire straits, at a crossroads, brought to his knees by the great pressures and complexity of life. He's shakily reaching out, and his best friend, an incarnation of God no less, takes his hand and walks him through the answer, explaining step by step the most profound secrets of all ages. And yet walking through the Gita may not be bump-free. Some words are unpronounceable, and some of the ideas are so new to us or so different to our Western culture that they can be missed, or even worse, dismissed. The idea of Atma, for example, which is the divinity within us, can feel strange to a Westerner. Me? God? Until Atma is understood to be a version of the soul. The ideas of detaching and surrendering are anathema to most Westerners. For some, the concept of avatar, which means an embodied God, is unthinkable. For others, it is acceptable only if it happens to be their idea of God who inhabits a body. Early in the story, most readers agree with Arjuna's anti-war sentiments, then only to be dismayed when Krishna, God, seeming to justify war, tells him to go and fight. The shock of this diminishes as we gradually learn that it is not a question of being for or against war, or even an issue of slaying or being slain, but it's an issue of living by one's inner truth and doing one's duty. We have to keep reminding ourselves that the battle is metaphoric, that the war is being fought inside each of us and will continue throughout our entire lives. There are bound to be other bumps. Many of the words in the original Sanskrit have multiple meanings, karma, for example, and some of the concepts may not appear fashionable in our times. Sacrifice, duty, and purity are examples. There will probably be others. The point is to try not to be turned off or dismiss anything in the Gita too early. These truths have survived the sands of time, remember. What remains is amazingly pure and practical. This is a powerful work, filled with truth that is beyond intellectualization. You have to read the Gita through your heart. It is your mood while reading that smooths your way through this ancient scripture. Be as receptive as you possibly can. Toss uneasiness and skepticism on the shelf for a while. Try to suspend hasty judgments and be more patient with unfamiliar usage of familiar words. Allow new conceptions of unity and divinity to enter and expand you into new ways of thinking and being. Read it heedfully and be prepared to take contemplation breaks along the way. Let it sink in. There is a high magic in reading it this way. The magic resides in the reader's overall attitude. This mood of acceptance is precisely how the Gita exhorts us to live our lives. This is the invaluable state of mind that brings a happier life. When we imbibe these ancient teachings in this spirit of acceptance, its high message seeps into our being, prompting and penetrating every thought and act. It becomes a part of us, and we of it. Thus, the process of reading the Gita becomes an actual experience of the profound truths it brings. Reading it this way is being it. The Gita, after all, is not theology or religion, it's poetry. It's a universal love song sung by God to his friend, man. It can't be confined by any creed. It's a statement of the truths at the core of what we all already believe, only it makes those truths clearer so they become immediately useful in our daily lives. Those truths are for our hearts, not just our heads. The Gita is more than just a book, more than mere words or concepts. There is an accumulated potency in it. To read the Gita is to be inspired in the true sense of the term, to be inspirited, to inhale the ancient and ever-new breath of spiritual energy. Now, swing back to the story. We too are there, right there on that long ago yet strangely current battlefield, a witness to Krishna's grand teachings. We too are there, being let in on the secrets. We watch and listen as the Lord himself, swinging easily between ecstasy and practicality, imparts the absolute, deepest and highest, the highest teachings. We too are walking through God's precise, loving responses to the most anguishing and important questions of humanity today.
his name, I opened up my eyes, and I found myself alone, alone, alone above the raging sea that soul, the only boy I loved, and drowned him deep inside of me. Soft and only you, lost and lonely you, just like